Did you know that nearly 70% of lottery winners lose all their winnings within 5 years? It sounds impossible, but it happens again and again, all over the world. Money doesn't fix broken habits, it just makes them louder. In fact, psychologists have a name for this pattern, they call it sudden wealth syndrome. People who receive huge amounts of money overnight often experience anxiety, paranoia, and reckless spending, because their mind was never trained to handle that kind of change. Today we're diving into real stories of fortunes made, fortunes lost, and a strange psychology hiding behind every dollar. You'll meet a janitor who quietly built a multi-million-dollar portfolio, a lottery winner whose luck turned into a nightmare, and one of the richest men in history who couldn't sleep at night because of his own wealth. By the end, you'll understand why money isn't really about numbers. It's about mindset. Let's get into it. Let's start with Jack Whittaker, a West Virginia construction executive who won $315 million in 2002, one of the largest single-ticket jackpots in American history at the time. Before winning, Whittaker was already a self-made millionaire, running a successful pipeline business. He seemed like the perfect example of someone who could handle sudden wealth. But within a few years, his life fell apart in ways nobody predicted. He was robbed multiple times, sued repeatedly, and his family suffered devastating personal tragedies. His granddaughter, who he showered with cash and gifts, died under tragic circumstances linked to the lifestyle the money enabled. Whittaker later admitted publicly that he wished he had torn up the ticket. Researchers who study wealth psychology point to this case constantly, because it shows something counterintuitive. Money doesn't just fail to solve problems. Sometimes it amplifies the very problems already sitting quietly beneath the surface, problems most people never notice until millions of dollars pour gasoline on them. Now flip the story completely. John D. Rockefeller became the richest man in modern history, controlling almost 90% of America's oil refining industry by the 1880s. Adjusted for inflation, his fortune would be worth over $400 billion today, more than any billionaire alive right now. Yet by his early 50s, Rockefeller was reportedly a physical wreck. He suffered from a stress-related digestive disorder so severe he could only eat crackers and milk. He lost his hair completely, including his eyebrows, from what doctors believed was extreme nervous tension. His own doctors warned he had maybe a year left to live if he didn't change his lifestyle. So he did something unexpected. He slowed down, started golfing, and began giving away his fortune to build hospitals, universities, and research institutions. Oddly enough, historians say this shift actually extended his life. He lived to 97. His story became one of the earliest public examples showing that accumulating wealth and feeling secure are two completely different things. Here's a story that flips the entire idea of what a millionaire looks like. Ronald Read worked as a gas station attendant and later a janitor at a department store in Vermont. He drove an old beat-up car, wore a safety pin to hold his coat together, and lived so modestly that neighbors assumed he was barely scraping by. When he passed away in 2014, his community was stunned to learn he had quietly built a stock portfolio worth almost $8 million. Nobody knew. He never flaunted it, never changed his lifestyle, and never told most people around him. His method was shockingly simple. He bought stocks in stable, well-known companies, reinvested his dividends, and never sold out of panic or trends. He simply let time and patience do the heavy lifting. In his will, he left millions to his local hospital and library. Ronald Read's story is now taught in personal finance circles as proof that consistency quietly beats intelligence, timing, or even income level over the long run. There's a psychological concept behind stories like these called hedonic adaptation. It explains why lottery winners often report feeling no happier a year after winning than they did before. Researchers studied this back in 1978 in a now famous study comparing lottery winners to regular people, and even to accident victims who had become paralyzed. The results shocked everyone. Within a relatively short time, both groups returned to roughly the same baseline level of happiness they had before their life-changing event. Our brains, it turns out, are wired to adjust to almost any circumstance, good or bad. A bigger house feels amazing for a few months, then it just becomes the house you live in. A new car feels thrilling until it becomes the car you drive to the grocery store. This is why so many wealthy people keep chasing the next purchase, the next upgrade, searching for a happiness spike that keeps shrinking every time they reach it. Understanding this single concept can completely change how you view your own spending habits. Now consider Warren Buffett, one of the richest men on the planet, currently worth over $100 billion. He still lives in the same modest house he bought in Omaha, Nebraska, back in 1958, for just $31,500. In today's money, that's roughly a fraction of 1% of his total net worth. He could buy entire islands without blinking, yet he chooses to stay in a 5-bedroom house on a regular street, with regular neighbors. Buffett has said publicly that he's never wanted a bigger house because it wouldn't make him happier, it would just be more to manage and more to worry about. He still drives himself to work, still eats at the same casual restaurants he always has, and famously still enjoys a simple breakfast most mornings. His reasoning is refreshingly simple: money is a tool for freedom, not a scoreboard for showing off. That mindset, more than any investment strategy, is what people often overlook when they study his success. Let's talk about scarcity mindset, something that shapes how people handle money for their entire lives, often without them realizing it. Sam Walton, founder of Walmart, grew up during the Great Depression, watching his family struggle to make ends meet on a small Missouri farm. Even after building one of the largest retail empires in the world, Walton still drove an old pickup truck, got his hair cut at the local barbershop, and reportedly clipped coupons well into his years as a billionaire. This wasn't about being cheap for the sake of it. Psychologists say early experiences with financial scarcity leave a lasting imprint on the brain, similar to how trauma reshapes behavior. People who live through real hardship often keep those frugal habits permanently, even once the danger has completely passed. It's a fascinating contradiction. Some of the wealthiest people in history still behave like they might lose everything tomorrow, because somewhere deep down, a younger version of themselves is still trying to protect the family from running out of food. So what's the real lesson hiding inside all these stories? Money doesn't create character, it reveals it. Give someone millions overnight, and whatever was already inside them, good habits or bad ones, patience or impulsiveness, tends to get magnified, not fixed. Jack Whittaker's story shows how quickly wealth can expose cracks that were always there. Ronald Read proves that quiet discipline can outperform flashy success. Rockefeller reminds us that health and peace of mind matter more than any number in a bank account. And Buffett shows that true freedom often looks a lot simpler than we expect. The next time you imagine what you'd do with a sudden fortune, ask yourself a better question instead. What habits are you building right now, with the money you already have? Because those habits, more than any jackpot, are what will actually decide your future. If stories like this fascinate you, stick around and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden psychology behind money and fortune.